Right, this week I'm going to show you how to make a very simple French onion soup for canning without using wine. Onions right now are probably ripening in your gardens, or they are very easy to find at the grocery store and the farmer's market, so this is a great time to make this soup for the upcoming winter months. The very first step is to prep your onions. Now we are looking for sweet onions. You need 4 pounds of sweet onions. I have Vidalia onions. If you are growing onions, try Walla Walla onions. Go ahead and chop those up or thin those slightly. If you have a vegetable chopper, that helps a lot. Next is you want to cover the onions liberally with olive oil. You also want to add some salt and pepper, and we are going to let these onions cook for 2 hours. You're going to cook them on medium-low heat. The first hour is with a cover. The second hour, take the cover off. This is what they should look like by the end of it. If you want to caramelize your onions, you're going to have to cook them for a lot longer than 2 hours. After those onions are cooked down, it is time to put broth into our soup. Now you do want beef broth if you can help it. Now I did half of my broth, half of store-bought broth. Either way, you want a gallon's worth of broth. A gallon is going to give you 5 to 6 quarts in the end. So if you do anything less, you probably won't get that many jars out of it. I did add some bouillon paste for extra flavor. Now this is going to be the substitute for wine. I'm going to first add the zest and juice of 2 lemons. Now if you want to start with 1 lemon, you can. This does give the broth quite a lemon flavor. I personally think it tastes so delicious and brightens up the soup just enough to where it helps balance all those heavy cheeses and bread and that heavy taste to the beef broth later on. And you can use bottled lemon juice if you want. The other thing I use instead of wine is vinegar. Specifically, I used my chive blossom vinegar that I made earlier in the spring. Now, vinegar is very strong. You just need a few splashes. In the soup, you can add more later on. There will be plenty of time to adjust the soup to taste while it is boiling before we jar it up. So only start with a few splashes. Next is thyme. You can use dried thyme, but since it is summer, I am hoping you have a thyme plant in your garden. Go ahead and harvest just a small handful. You only need about 2 to 3, maybe 4 tablespoons of thyme, depending on how much thyme you want to have in your soup. You do want to try to get all the stems off or away from the leaves. You don't really want stems in this broth. It's a very loose, brothy soup. It's a sipping soup. Last thing you want to do is sip up a stem of thyme. So I am just peeling my thyme leaves off the stem. And then after they are all peeled, I'm also going to chop them up just so they are just nice and tiny. Please use as much thyme as you want. Of course, this is to taste. If you have, there's so many versions of thyme, so many varieties of thyme, I should say, that you can use orange thyme, lemon thyme. This is English thyme that I showed you. But please, it's your kitchen, your soup. Use whatever you have on hand and be creative here with the thyme. After all of that, it is time to let this soup come up to a boil, and then we are going to turn it down a little bit to let it simmer for 15-20-ish minutes. During this time, it is time to set up the pressure canner. This is a pressure canning recipe. Please follow the instruction booklet to your pressure canner to set it up properly and use it properly, because mine is probably different from yours. You also want to get your jars in some hot water, because this is going to be some hot soup that we are putting up into the canner. Okay, now skipping ahead just a little bit, my soup is done, my canner is warmed, my jars are warmed, so I am pulling my jars out. It is ready for me to fill my jars with the hot soup. I am first going to take the soup off the heat though, because it is just easier for me to do it like that. Then I am going to just simply ladle the soup into the jars. You want to leave a final 1-inch headspace. Then, of course, after you fill it, clean your rims very, very well. I use the same vinegar water that I soak my jars in to clean my rims. Put the lid and band on finger tight, and then go ahead and load it into the pressure canner and just continue until all your jars are filled. I ended up only getting 5 quart jars out of this batch. Another batch I made, I ended up getting 6. So I don't know, maybe I ended up putting more onions in the previous batch that I did, but 5 jars of soup is still fantastic. That's still gonna give us plenty of meals. I especially like to have the soup on hand for when we don't feel good. This is a perfect sipping soup when you are feeling sick with a cold, flu, etc. We are going to pressure can the quart jars for an hour and 15 minutes, 10 pounds pressure, adjusting for altitude if you need to. If you did do pints, you just do pints for an hour. Once they are out of the canner, this is what they look like. Do not touch them while they are cooling. Check for seals about 12 hours later. I had 1 jar not seal, but it was fantastic because we ate it for dinner and I was very happy with the end result. I just did some cheesy bread to dip it in, and this turned out so good, so bright, so lemony, so delicious, especially without the use of wine. I will leave my full recipe in the link down below. Please check that out. I really hope this helps, and I will see you in the next one.